It's not over yet for New Orleans Saints quarterback Spencer Rattler. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, the Saints now need to deal with two key offensive players out for the season. We'll take a look at rookie Devin Neal and how he could be the next big piece to show out and show some impact in that 2025 NFL draft class. Dealing without Eric McCoy was doomed for the New Orleans Saints last season and might be again this year. We're going to kick everything off with, as promised, the big conversation around New Orleans Saints quarterback Spencer Rattler. Is it time for the New Orleans Saints to turn to Tyler Shough? I'll tell you why it's not that time just yet. We got all that coming up for you on today's episode. We appreciate you very much, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us this time, making this your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets used across the app. Head over to FanDuel.com today to get started. New Orleans Saints quarterback Spencer Rattler had his career low game up against the Chicago Bears on Sunday in the Saints' 26-14 Week 7 loss to the Bears. But despite that, it's not time for the New Orleans Saints to turn things over to rookie quarterback Tyler Shough just yet. I got a couple of reasons why I believe that's the case, but I want to start off with what it is that Kellen Moore has been saying around the facility and something that he said on Monday's day after press conference, which effectively answers the question of why it is that Spencer Rattler is going to be given another shot this upcoming weekend up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a game where Spencer Rattler has thrown for the most yards in his career in both of those games up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that he played last year his rookie season. But of course, one of the best teams in the NFC going to be coming off of a bruising loss to the Detroit Lions on Monday, and of course will be without wide receiver Mike Evans, although injuries to other teams have not played into the Saints' opportunities here so far this season. But one of the things that Kellen Moore has been talking about is response. And this should not be surprising. It's pretty clear that that's something that Kellen Moore believes very strongly about. We saw it all throughout the preseason, each quarterback getting ample amounts of opportunities, whether they had good days or bad days, an opportunity to follow it up and respond. One of the big things that he's been talking about around the facility, thanks to some team sources, as well as players that I've spoken to, have talked about how a big mantra of Kellen Moore's is, hey, it's all about how they respond. And so because of that, Kellen Moore is very likely to give Spencer Rattler a chance to respond. In fact, he effectively said as much on Monday during his day after press conference, where he talked about, again, the response. He said of Spencer Rattler that, yeah, he had a challenging game up against the Chicago Bears, a team that has forced several turnovers in back-to-back games. And Spencer Rattler was the latest quarterback that Chicago Bears defense, led by former New Orleans Saints head coach Dennis Allen, has preyed upon. But one of the things that Kellen Moore did say was, now we get a chance to respond, using his words. And so now the Saints sound like they're ready to give Spencer Rattler an opportunity to respond. And you might say, wait, Ross. This is a quarterback that in his starting opportunities over the course of his career is 1-12, 0-6 last season and 1-6 so far this season, the team's record through Week 7. And so how many chances is he going to get to respond? Well, here's the thing. The entire time that we've discussed Spencer Rattler throughout the season, we've never really gotten to this point of the conversation, which is, will Spencer Rattler be benched for Tyler Shough? Why? Because Spencer Rattler's had a pretty solid year so far. He hadn't turned the ball over a ton. And again, I don't think throwing interceptions is the worst thing in the world. Now, when you throw interceptions because you put the ball behind a guy on an in-breaking route, you try to toss one over the top, and you have some of the issues, and then you throw into congestion in the middle of the field. Obviously, there's context to these interceptions. That's very important. But you got to take some risks. And the more risks you take, the more turnovers you're likely to at least chance. And so 3 interceptions in a game is something that you can't move forward and win with. But this is the first time that we've seen that from Spencer Rattler, a career high in interceptions. Now, his previous career high was 2 interceptions, which happened against the very Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, or last year's version of the very Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that he's about ready to take on this upcoming weekend. But again, a chance being given to him to respond after what was a career worst performance. And so, and in that career worst performance, by the way, still connecting with Chris Olave for a pair of touchdowns, connecting with Chris Olave for Chris Olave's career long reception in his career. So still some good things to be seen from all of that, but all things within context. Some good things is not enough to take over and overshadow a bunch of bad things or a bunch of challenges. And so that's why this upcoming game becomes very important. Now, I will say Kellen Moore, as he so often has, did leave the door open for a quarterback change at a later time, saying that it's week to week in terms of the decision that could be made there and getting an opportunity to get a look, not just at Spencer Rattler here throughout the 2025 season, but eventually Tyler Shough. And if you look at the things that Kellen Moore and the New Orleans Saints coaching staff have done so far this year, it makes sense, right? You see Danny Stutzman getting out there on the 3rd drive of every quarter so far over the course of the past 2 games. We saw Quincy Riley get more opportunities in the defense, and then once Isaac Yiadom started to deal with that injury, then Quincy Riley stepped up and then became a starter for the team. Vernon Broughton was getting mixed in until he had that season-ending injury. Of course, we've seen Kelvin Banks Jr. get his opportunities, but like we see these we see these rookies. I was thinking about Moliki Mataval, who early on in the season got a lot of opportunity. Fadil Diggs got a lot of early opportunities as well. Both of those positions kind of changed for those guys once more health started to kind of take place for that position group or for those position groups. But for New Orleans, like, this is a big part of what they've done. They've gotten evaluations and exposure for those players. Tyler Shough so far, only 3 snaps so far in his rookie year, and those 3 snaps came in a blowout loss up against the Seattle Seahawks. So eventually, I'm sure we will see Tyler Shough. But I think the Saints might like to try to take that all the way down to the bye week. Give him the bye week plus the practice week in order to be ready coming out of that bye, and an opportunity to have maybe a little bit of a rejuvenated push towards the end of the season where you've got some winnable games on your schedule. The Saints still have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well as the Los Angeles Rams on the way, and they've got to be able to manage those. Are those games that you want to start Tyler Shough in? I don't know. And so give Spencer Rattler an opportunity to rebound against some positive teams where there would be no question marks if he had a strong performance and was able to bounce back up against the Chicago Bears. I think for all those reasons, it makes sense not to sit Spencer Rattler right now, but not sitting Spencer Rattler right now is not the same thing as not seeing Tyler Shough here in the 2025 season. That's a decision that feels all but inevitable here during the year because the Saints need to get a full evaluation of what they have at the quarterback position. But coming up next, the quarterback's job just got a lot harder no matter who it is, because they will be without Eric McCoy, and I'm expecting a big-time continued drop-off for the offensive line without its best on the field. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So, let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move, and they deliver with confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August of 2025. From footwork to breathwork, we know that athletes sweat all of the details, and Mazda brings that same level of intention to how they craft every single one of their models. You can see it in the craftsmanship, everything from those fantastic metallic accents to the beautiful Napa leather upholstery that is available for you as well. And of course, you have that smooth handling and intuitive controls that turn everyday drives into anything but everyday drives. And of course, all-wheel drive, which comes standard with every crossover SUV, making sure you're ready to drive with confidence through almost any season. So just like the players you know and love, Mazda sweats every single detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, family, the New Orleans Saints are not making a quarterback change, at least at this point, but they are going to have a change at another very, very important position on the offense. That, of course, is at center. Eric McCoy's season is over. Eric McCoy dealing with a torn biceps injury that is going to end his year here in 2025. So for the second year in a row, Eric McCoy appearing for just 7 games, dealt last year with a groin injury that sidelined him for the majority of the season, but then also late in the year had another arm injury that kept him out for some games. Now, here when it comes to Eric McCoy, this is a torn biceps injury, which Kellen Moore said he believes is different than the injury that kept Eric McCoy out towards the end of the season. But being without Eric McCoy was a big time issue for the New Orleans Saints last year, and I think it will be again here in 2025. We wish Eric a speedy recovery. Awesome dude, fantastic guy to talk to in the locker room, great player as well, one of the best centers in the NFL, and honestly, one of the top talents on this New Orleans Saints football team, often not acknowledged when it comes to the best players on the team, but that's kind of the point for a center. Not really the point for the center, I shouldn't say it that way, but that's kind of the thing when it comes to being a center or an offensive lineman, depending upon which position you play. You probably don't get a lot of shine when you're one of the best, and that has been the case, of course, with Eric McCoy. Now the Saints are going to have to figure out what it is that they do to be able to replace him, because it's going to take more than just one player stepping in at center that's going to make that job or fill in that role for Eric McCoy. You have options of players that could step into that role. Luke Fortner is the guy that stepped in a pinch during the game, during that second half up against the Chicago Bears. Played okay there. He's a veteran safety as well, somebody with NFL experience starting at the position. But you also, of course, have Cesar Ruiz, who can move from right guard to center, and then you can plug Torricelli Simpkins in at right guard and allow him to continue to develop as well. Or Torricelli Simpkins, who performed extremely well during the preseason at center, could be a guy that steps into that role as well. If you ask me, Torricelli Simpkins performed better at center than he has at either guard position. But of course, he performed at center during the preseason, where he was playing against a lot of guys that were fighting to make rosters and things like that. Now, a little bit different, of course, when you step into a starting role, but there's a lot of promise in a Torricelli Simpkins. And so finding ways to have both he and Cesar Ruiz on the field together might be something that helps to further his development a little bit. But the Saints could also do what it is that they have done in typical position battle conversations throughout the offseason and throughout the season here, and go with the veteran player with the NFL experience, and that's what you would get with Luke Fortner. For years and years and years, I've kept saying that the New Orleans Saints need to have an answer, need to have a player that they could fall back on at center that's not, moving from another starting position in and upsetting 2 different position groups. They finally have that last year. They did the Lucas Patrick thing, and now they've got much, much better options than him when it comes to somebody plugging in at center, and you don't have to pull somebody from another position in order to be able to do that along your starting lineup. So we'll see which direction they go. I would not be surprised if they went with Luke Fortner, but at the same time, look, this Saints team has done a lot of this over the course of the season. Injury to Julian Blackmon, they didn't go to Terrell Burgess, they went to Jonas Sanker, the young rookie. Injury to Isaac Yadam, they didn't go to the veteran player that's been around for a couple of years now in Rajon Wright, they went to rookie Quincy Riley. Then they went and they got Michael Davis. And even though with Michael Davis in the building, they've continued to go to Quincy Riley. And so we have seen now over the course of the season that when there's an injury to a starter, the Saints are not afraid to go to a rookie in their place. And so if Torricelli Simpkins ends up being the guy that they want to get out there so they can continue to develop him at center, so they can continue to get some opportunities for him, so they continue to put him out there so that he gets better and better and better, could be an opportunity for him. Now, you've got a really good and talented interior defensive line you're about to go up against with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, although they are dealing with some injuries there, of course, players out for the season like Elijah Cansey, for instance. But that might lead them to go with Luke Fortner. But I mean, at the same time, if there's an opportunity to get those guys out there or get a young guy like that out there against some of those really good defensive players to see how he might develop with some extended opportunities up against some premium production and against some premium talents, then there might be a reason to go about it that way. So I wouldn't be super surprised on the same token if the Saints actually did go with Torricelli Simpkins. But if you go with either one of those players, one of the things that might end up being the difference is how well they communicate checks, pre-snap, all those other pieces. We saw during the preseason, that was something that did not go well. We saw Torricelli Simpkins perform well at center, but a lot of the pre-snap identifications, the blitz checks, all those other things, like the Saints offensive line struggled with that, whether it was the starting unit or the third unit, it did not matter. And so I think that's got to be the next thing, is how do you end up helping yourself when it comes to all of the pre-snap communication, getting your offensive line set, getting everything communicated, and getting all of those protections in place? Who is going to take on that responsibility? And it becomes tricky because the immediate answer is, well, then you have the quarterback do it. But can you do that knowing that you might see a quarterback change later on in the year? And how much does that complicate factors when it comes to potentially making that quarterback change at a later time, if you do want to get a look at Tyler Shough before you go into the offseason and eventually the 2026 NFL draft? I think that that's going to be a big question mark in terms of how the Saints end up finding a way to make up for the loss of Erik McCoy, which is about much, much more than a player just physically standing in and playing the position of center after the whistle, or after the snap, excuse me. It's all the stuff before the snap. It's the leadership in the locker room. It's the accountability and leadership at practice. All of those things are pieces that multiple players are going to have to step up into. Now, I will say, when it comes to practice leadership, locker room leadership, things like that, I'm looking at Taliesin Fuanga, a guy that was made a part of that leadership console that the Saints helped to put together, which is a group of about 10 plus players that includes the captains, but then also players that those captains effectively handpicked to say, no, we want them as a part of the leadership group. Fuanga's on that console, that leadership group. And so him being a guy that steps into that leadership role feels very natural. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how he adjusts to that, and maybe getting some insight from him about what that's like for him stepping into those types of responsibilities. But when it comes to replacing Erik McCoy, whether it's Luke Fortner, whether it's Cesar Ruiz, or whether it's Torricelli Simpkins, it's about much, much more than just playing the position after the snap. And it's going to take multiple players to make up for that, including some, I'm sure, heavy lifting from the quarterback, which could create some later complications. The ripple effect without Erik McCoy is real, and one of the big reasons why I would not be surprised to see a repeat of last year, where this team fell apart without its starting center. Coming up next, the New Orleans Saints will also be without running back Kendre Miller for the 2025 season, or the remainder of, and that puts this 2025 draft class right back in the spotlight, because they've already proven to be very impactful, and now we could see another player impact that impact. Let's dive into it as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the best place to go to get in on all of your favorite sports betting action. The NFL season is here, and of course, FanDuel is making sure that you have a can't-miss offer to keep you ready for each week's kickoff. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if you win that first $5 bet, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. That's right. All you got to do is pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll get $300 in bonus bets unlocked for you to be able to utilize all across the app. More odds, lines, and player props, same game parlays, live betting, as well. Usually, I always tell you about the Saints and what their upcoming line is. We can go into some of that later on in the week after it moves a bit, but the Saints are not surprisingly underdogs up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But how about the best football team in Louisiana, Tulane right now, second in odds when it comes to that American Conference? What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today and download the FanDuel app to get started. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The next big part of the 2025 NFL draft class may be running back Devin Neal. The New Orleans Saints will be without Kendre Miller, who, just unfortunately, ACL injury, his season is over. Kellen Moore confirmed that on Monday. And honestly, it's heartbreaking for the young man who worked so hard all throughout his college career, stayed healthy, got to the NFL, all of a sudden started dealing with these injury issues. He had a knee issue, meniscus injury issue coming into the NFL, but then just dealt with thing after thing after thing after thing, got to this offseason, completely changed how he approached the offseason, changed his number, changed his mentality, changed everything about the way that he went into the offseason. Self-proclaimed, he told us about that during training camp. And then got here to the 2025 season and was healthy all throughout training camp, healthy all throughout the preseason, healthy all throughout the offseason, healthy for 7 games, gets out there against the Chicago Bears and Dennis Allen's defense and runs for 7 yards, and then bang, his ACL. And now he's done for the season. And it's just heartbreaking. I've told the story here before, but this is a guy that had to remind himself at 22, 23 years old that he could still play football. And that's such a tragic feeling that I could think of, to just have to deal with that as an NFL player, a guy that is, dedicated his entire life to being to this point, and then now this next roadblock. Now he's got a lot of positive people around him that are going to keep his spirits up, and I'm excited to see his bounce back going into next season. But it's clear that the Saints are going to get more looks and more opportunities at the running back position. They might bring in another veteran running back, a free agent running back, to add to this room. They've obviously still got Alvin Kamara. You're going to see Tyler Shough Jr. probably come up from the practice squad to the active roster. And then so maybe you'll see a familiar face back in the building as well. They could potentially come back for New Orleans and give them an opportunity, or give them another player to have, whether it be on the active roster or over on the practice squad. But the one guy that everything now shifts to is running back Devin Neal, the rookie, who is a part of a 2025 draft class that has proven so far to be the most impactful draft class since 2017. Now, it's funny, I said that on social media, which I probably shouldn't have, but I said something to that effect. And the big concern was, don't disrespect the 2017 draft class by saying that. No. That's ridiculous. No one is disrespecting the 2017 draft class. It's one of the best draft classes the NFL has ever seen. What I'm saying is that this 2025 draft class has a chance to be the most impactful draft class out of every other draft class since that one, because the Saints have not drafted very successfully since then. I think that they hit on Brian Brzee. I think they hit on a couple of other players that have been longtime starters for them. Obviously, Taliesin Fong has been fantastic for them, so on and so forth. And so, there will be parts of the draft classes in the previous years that have worked out, but this 2025 draft class already has a long-term starter at left tackle in Kelvin Banks Jr., who just gets better and better and better every week. They landed a starting safety in the, what did they get him in the 3rd round out of Virginia, in Jonas Sanker. We'll see what happens with Vernon Broughton, also drafted in the 3rd round, but obviously is dealing with that end of year, or that season-ending injury. But then in the 5th round, getting a guy like Quincy Riley, who just had his first interception of his career up against the Chicago Bears. By the way, Sanker and Riley now become the first pair of rookie defenders for the New Orleans Saints to have an interception in the same season since 2019. But the thing about the 2019 pairing is that not only was it C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the safety, the other rookie was undrafted defensive tackle Shy Tuttle, in a play that I'm sure you'll all remember. But you have to go back to probably 2017 before you get back to actually 2 DBs in the same draft class getting an interception in their rookie season. And so for New Orleans, it's so clear that this draft class is already a very impactful one. Plus, you add in the fact that Danny Stutzman continues to get mixed in more and more and more. Now, he's on a strict schedule. He goes in for the 3rd drive of each half. That's what's happened over the course of the past couple of games. We'll see how that continues to evolve for them, but with the missed tackles and the issues that we've seen so far around that linebacker position, maybe there's an opportunity for a guy like Danny Stutzman to become an even more impactful player in this 2025 draft class. Certainly that's the goal for his future, a guy that can get all over the field, that can slip blocks and end up making some good solid tackles in the run game. But now the next player that goes under the microscope is 6th-round rookie Devin Neal, who had one of the better pass protection blocks that we have seen from a running back in quite some time. Probably since Latavius Murray, right? Probably since Latavius Murray. And just knowing his breakaway potential, he is Kansas's all-time leader in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, scrimmage touchdowns, 100-yard rushing games. He's the only Kansas running back to ever run for 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. He had a little bit of an injury during training camp. They kept him on the sideline a bit, but now he's been healthy. I've talked to him several times in the locker room. Great kid, and he's talked a lot about staying ready in case the team needs him. And guess what? Now the team needs him. And so he could become the next big-time piece to this 2025 draft class that's proving to be a very, very effective draft class for the New Orleans Saints, both in situations where they're being given opportunities and others making it happen when being thrust into opportunities. And Devin Neal will be next on that list. All right, coming up in tomorrow's episode, let's look back at what has happened for the New Orleans Saints season so far and where things need to go from here. And of course, we'll get started with some of our draft look-aheads as well. Don't forget, you can catch us every Monday through Friday over on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. If you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Learn how the family's doing, how you living. Let me know how your mom and them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.